Paramedic Abuse is Saturday at 7 on the Emmy-winning Fight Back.
What do you get if you try to sell 50% of your car company for the profits on a coke deal? A formal arraignment and a $5 million bail if your name is DeLorean.
President Reagan was trying to make his own deal on Wednesday. He hopes to make a straight swap, a farm export bill for farmers' votes. We'll show you DeLorean in handcuffs and the president in Illinois on Overnight.
John DeLorean was what they call a financier. Now he is what they call a defendant. Tuesday night, Mr. DeLorean was arrested. Wednesday night, he was charged formally with conspiring to possess and sell 220 pounds of cocaine. Correspondent Don Oliver covered the arraignment.
DeLorean and his wife embraced after hearing his bail would be set at $5 million. That's an amount his attorney said the car manufacturer could raise from property he owns. DeLorean was pictured by his attorney as a victim, a man who fell prey to a scheme because he was so worried about his car company.
He's an individual that respects the Constitution and respects the laws and our courts.
Is he confident he can get a fair trial?
Oh, yes.
What was his state of mind? How would you characterize that?
That's good. You saw him in court.
I've never seen a case, though, where the judge allowed the wife of a defendant to do what we saw in there today. Sit with them, talk to them, hug and kiss them.
I've been at it for 30 years, and I've seen it.
U.S. Attorney James Walsh had argued for a bail of $20 million, warning that DeLorean may flee the country like financier Robert Vesco did.
I can simply imagine that the same kind of a plea must have been tendered on his behalf with the same kind of factors raised and considered. I'm sure he had a flawless record and had a good family and all the rest of that. I simply don't consider that to be a relevant consideration in this case.
The judge was assured DeLorean will not skip bail. He is said to still believe he can rescue his bankrupt car company once he is out of jail. DeLorean's wife, actress Christina Ferrari, was said to be emotionally upset, but ready to stand by her husband all the way.
In an affidavit, the FBI contends that DeLorean went out looking for a supplier of cocaine and also heroin, offering to pay $1.8 million. The FBI also says that 4 sessions with DeLorean were videotaped. Don Oliver, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Horatio Alger wrote the books, Work Hard, Persevere, and Do Right. Riches and happiness will follow. But Mr. Alger wrote fiction, and in fiction it's easy to guarantee happiness forever after. All too often, it doesn't really work that way.
John Zachary DeLorean, 6'4", 57 years old, weightlifter, tennis player, horse rider, part-time sculptor, aspiring political novelist. Net worth, maybe $10 million, 2 master's degrees, 1 engineering, 1 business. Put himself through college playing the clarinet and saxophone. First noticed nationally as General Motors' long-haired maverick, tolerated for his success. At GM, he gave us a wide-track Pontiac, the overhead cam engine. He gave GM a program to train and hire ex-convicts. He brought out the Chevy Vega and headed for the GM presidency when, with his wife's blessing, left his $600,000 job. Not satisfying, he said, and became, as an admirer said, the first man to fire General Motors. His wife, Christina Ferrar, the $300,000 a year model, Max Factor, Virginia Slims. His third wife, 25 years younger than he. 2 children, their daughter Catherine, and the boy Zachary, whom he adopted while single. Between General Motors and the birth of DeLorean Motors, he spent a year running an association to find work for the hardcore unemployed. There were plenty of those in Northern Ireland to make his $25,000 sports car, making more of them than Americans would buy, and the 3,000 or 4,000 who did buy were mainly collectors.
We didn't have trouble selling them, we wouldn't have trouble.
DeLorean the Loner, critical of American values, which he said condemned the youth who pilfered but re-elected the politician who junketed. The American picture of American success.
Oh yes, I think from the very first meeting with Mr. DeLorean, everyone knew exactly that his personality was a flamboyance, confidence, and indeed he exuded that confidence so much that people who before they met him were quite doubtful about the project could come away from conversations and arguments with him saying that they were convinced of his expertise. So that the personality of the man was indeed very strong, and I think the attitude in Northern Ireland was, yes, we're a strong personality, it's not exactly the lifestyle that we're accustomed to in this part of the world, but in fact the project was more important than the man, and I think his personality was looked at with some views of difference, but the project and its employment was the important central element, and indeed the misfortune of the last year is that the man and the project have had their fates intertwined.
As the firm's financial troubles mounted, Mr. DeLorean became something of a transatlantic commuter, frequently flying into Heathrow, and a score of journalists always eager to know what his next request to the government would be and what future he held out for his Ulster workforce. Just hours before Monday night's final deadline for a financial rescue, Mr. DeLorean was still confident he could save the company. In a BBC radio interview, he was asked where was the money coming from.
It's a line that from a very wealthy people, and they've essentially assured us and the government that whatever amount is required will be made available. And you got to remember, this has been an incredibly difficult period of time for us. I personally have written something over $6 million worth of checks to keep this company alive. And so, we're only doing it to protect the jobs in Belfast. I really don't need all this aggravation.
The DeLorean project, seen initially as a huge shot in the arm to Northern Ireland's ailing economy, where unemployment exceeds 25%, was never free of controversy. But it had its moments of euphoria. With the help of more than $150 million in British government funds, DeLorean produced 400 cars a week at its peak and employed 2,600. But when car sales slumped, the cash ran out, and in February of this year, the plant went into receivership. But the final blow came Monday, when Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, James Pryor, having set an unexpectedly short deadline, said DeLorean had failed to come up with $10 million cash. The project was being canceled. Said Pryor, the DeLorean car has no future.
The receivers had said on Sunday they were satisfied that DeLorean could come up with the money, but the British government said it couldn't wait any longer. And there is already speculation here that Mrs. Thatcher had been warned that bad news was ahead.
Wednesday night, the President of the United States, who used to announce baseball games himself, was flying high over Iowa aboard Air Force One. He called both managers, the St. Louis Cardinals manager and the manager of the Milwaukee Brewers, to congratulate the teams on being good winners and good losers in that order. Prior to Mr. Reagan's calls, the Cards had beaten the Brewers 6-3 to win the 7th and final game of the World Series. That's the story, not much to add. But true to the craft of sports talk, we will go ahead and add it anyway. NBC covered the action at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Ozzie Smith's line drive in the bottom of the 4th got past Paul Molitor, and Willie McGee went home with the first run of the game. Top of the 5th, the Brewers' Ben Oglivie hit a home run and tied it up 1-1. Murmurs of doubt were heard by one sports writer. Top of the 6th, Paul Molitor's sacrifice bunt is misplayed by Cardinal pitcher Joaquin Andujar. The ball goes into right field, and Jim Gantner scores from third. The Brewers lead 2-1. St. Louis snapped back. A bases-loaded single by Keith Hernandez in the bottom of the 6th drove home both Ozzie and Lonnie Smith. Are they brothers? No, but the game's all tied at 3-3. Then George Hendrick hit a single to drive in pinch runner Mike Ramsey, and the Cards went out front 4-3, and they stayed in front. In the 8th, Darrell Porter hit a long line drive to right field. Lonnie Smith scored, and it was 5-3. Still in the 8th, Steve Braun's base hit scored Hernandez from third, and it was 6-3. Gorman Thomas, the last Brewer to face Bruce Sutter, worked the count to 3-2 and then struck out. Then came the hugging and the crowds and the fireworks and the pandemonium. St. Louis had won its 9th World Series.
After all major sports events, certainly all championship events, TV cameras show you the winners and the losers as if you would be amazed that the winners seem to be happy and the losers sad. And so it will be in this snippet of Winners and Losers, which includes a new phrase in the English language, hang their heads high.
The trophy that says you're champions of the world, and you deserve it.
Thank you, boy.
Thank you very much, my friend. That's marvelous.
Our ball club never quit all year. We came out last night smoking with a rookie pitching. He did a great job. And tonight they jumped out 3-1 on us, and we came right back and got some runs.
We showed the world, you know, that the contrast in ball clubs has no bearing on who is the better team. I think when you get to this situation with the ball clubs the 2 ball clubs that were in it, it's just the one that's more opportunistic than the other. And
it was fun. I'll tell you, it was the most fun I've had playing baseball in my whole career.
So my teammates are going to be anybody tonight. Excuse me 1 second, please. Quiero saludar a todo dominicano y para mí es un orgullo representar a la República Dominicana como el señor Jorge Blanco, Magluta y toda mi familia. Muchísimas gracias a todos.
Congratulations got to go to them too. They're a great ball club. They never gave up and they kept battling.
I will say that each and every one of them can hang their heads high, that they're a great bunch of guys. They're a great ball club, and as far as I'm concerned, they're all champions.
Congratulations on being named MVP. Thanks. That's just so wonderful. I can't believe it.
Last night I said there are never 8 World Series games. One of our viewers, with an exemplary dedication to accuracy, called to say there had been 4 World Series with 8 games back when the series was the best out of 9. I'm sorry to have made the mistake, but series games played in 1903, 12, 19, and 21 interest me only slightly less than the one just completed.